What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Earlier today, if you have not seen the video, I did put out a video on Jamal Agnew, our former cornerback and kick and punt returner, transitioning to wide receiver. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out. If you want that kind of information, it's not the most exciting Lions news, but it is Lions news nonetheless. And we haven't had a ton of that recently this offseason since the draft kind of ended. But I will be mentioning it in this video. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out. Before we do get into the video, if you are new to the channel, consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with a Lions or an NFL fan if you are enjoying this type of content. I'm very appreciative to everybody that does so, even if you just click on one video, and watch it. It means the world to me. It makes my day, and I'm very appreciative to everybody that helps me and supports me, and supports this channel. Because I'm really enjoying it. I love what I'm doing here on YouTube, and everybody that, chooses to watch it just, encourages me that much more to keep going. So, with that being said, let's get into the topic of the video: why the Detroit Lions can go from worst to first in the NFC North. Now, every single year, there is a team in any given division that goes from the worst team in the division, was in fourth place one year, and then next year, somehow they miraculously jump to the first place in the division and make the playoffs and, maybe get a bye or something like that. Whether it was the Jaguars in 2017, the 49ers this year, there are just tons of examples throughout the NFL's history where a team goes from the worst team in the division to the first team in the division, seemingly out of nowhere, right? Well, I think that the Detroit Lions can be that team this year. And I'm not just saying that as a Lions fan. Even though I am an optimistic Lions fan, I'm always going to root for the team. I always expect them to be good. But I genuinely think, trying to be as unbiased as possible, that the Detroit Lions are the team that are going to go from worst to first this season. I have some, pretty valid reasons, I think. First off, the health concerns last year. If you haven't seen the video, I made only 15 players on the roster last year, played in all 16 games, and most of them were not starters. I believe the only starters that did were Don Muhlbach, who's the long snapper, Kenny Galladay, and Justin Coleman. I believe we're the only three real starters that started every single game for the Detroit Lions last year. And that's not going to happen next year. The chances of that many players getting injured for that long again is just almost impossible. I know injuries are probably going to hit the Lions next year, but there's no way that they hit the Lions that hard again. And that's kind of the first reason. And, even though the Lions were injured and beaten up and absolutely decimated by injuries, they still competed every single week. I believe they led in 14 of the 16 games going into the fourth quarter. Even though they were decimated by injuries, playing with third-string quarterbacks, sixth-string running backs, second, third-string wide receivers, they were still putting up numbers. They were still putting up good performances and good enough to compete with NFL teams that, weren't as battered and bruised as the Detroit Lions were last year. They're going to be healthier next year. They're going to be ready to go, and everybody's going to be on the field for the Detroit Lions next year. And I think the most important guy that went down last year was our starting quarterback, Matthew Stafford. He's going to come back next year. All reports say that he's healthy. He's ready to go. If the season started right now, he would be starting week 1 for the Detroit Lions against the Chicago Bears if it were to happen tomorrow. Everything says that he's completely healed, completely ready for this upcoming NFL season. And I think that he was the big reason why we didn't win as many games as a lot of Lions fans were hoping for this year. When he was playing, we were 3-4-1. Obviously just below 500, but we did play the Super Bowl champions, the Green Bay Packers, who made it to the NFC Championship. The Philadelphia Eagles, who lost in the wild card round to the Seattle Seahawks. We played some very good teams, and we beat some very good teams last season. And then we should have beaten other very good teams last season also that, maybe there was one or two plays here and there, or one or two poor calls in any given game that switched the momentum, switched the narrative to, unfortunately, away from the Lions, and they weren't quite able to pull out that win. But Stafford was on an MVP level last year. He was on pace for 5,000 yards and 40 touchdowns and only 10 interceptions, which is, amazing. Only, I think, 9 players have ever thrown for 5,000 yards in a season or something like that. It's not a lot, and Stafford just done it once before. He was on pace to do it last year. And he has so many more weapons now. Not only did we draft Cephas and bring in Allison as wide receivers, we also brought in DeAndre Swift, as a receiving back. We brought in offensive linemen to protect Stafford and even take some pressure off of him. And I think that he's going to come back and be even better than last season. He might not put up as many stats because I don't think he's going to throw it as much, but he's going to be more efficient next year than he was this year, and he was at record efficiency last year. So, that's going to be a scary thing to see from him. The run game next year is going to be much, much better. I already mentioned bringing in DeAndre Swift, who is, a very good receiving back, but also a very good running back. I mean, he can run the ball very effectively, had over 1,000 yards in back-to-back years in the SEC. Just a very good all-around back. And, if Stafford can make it work with Theo Riddick and J.D. McKissick and, these guys that, I'm not going to say are bad football players because they're not, but they're not, on the level of DeAndre Swift. They weren't drafted super highly. They're not making a ton of money. They're not huge names in the NFL. And DeAndre Swift was drafted, probably should have been drafted in the first round, was drafted at the very beginning of the second round, has, immense amounts of talent, basically just is better than Theo Riddick and J.D. McKissick in every single category. And I'm excited to see what Stafford could do with a guy with this kind of talent at running back. But also, we brought in Jonah Jackson and Logan Stenberg guards. We brought in Big V, who is a run-blocking tackle. We're going to be able to run the ball next season and run it efficiently. And that's going to help not only drain the clock and keep our defense off the field if they're not performing well, but also it's going to leave less time for the opponent's offense to score against us. And that's going to help us win games. A lot like what you saw from the Raiders last year. They just, ran the ball, and they got a lot of wins out of it. They were a very tough team to beat last year. And the Lions actually lost to them because of their ability to run the ball. Next year, the defense should be much, much better. We got a new defensive coordinator in Corey Undlin, who is from the Philadelphia Eagles, has won a Super Bowl, knows what it takes to get to that level, preaches aggression, and he, out of his corners, he preaches aggression. He wants them to rip the ball out, hit the ball. Even if you give up the completion, that sucks, but then now you can have a chance to make the play and get the ball out, even if the receiver catches it. And I think that's something he preaches in his cornerbacks. That's the reason why they were so successful in 2017 when they won the Super Bowl. They had a top 5 defense. And I know that he wasn't necessarily calling the plays, but he was around that. He was not only coaching the defensive backs on what to do, and the defensive backs were a big part of why that defense was so good, but, he was around. He knows, what calls work against certain teams and what calls don't. He knows what works in the NFL and what doesn't work in the NFL. And I think him and Patricia are two pretty smart guys. I think they're going to come together and have a very good defensive game plan every single Sunday that's going to put our defense in a prime position to win football games. And not only those coaches, coming together, but we also brought in Jamie Collins, Danny Shelton, Jeffrey Okudah, Desmond Trufant, Deron Harmon. All guys that are going to help us win football games, help us close out football games, because if our offense can do what they did last year and get a lead in 14 games, all we have to do is hold the lead. We don't have to, score every single drive anymore. We don't have to worry that our defense is going to give up 30, 40 points a game. If our offense can have a lead going into the fourth quarter, the Lions are going to be able to have faith that their defense can at least hold on long enough. Maybe they give up 3 points instead of 7 points. Maybe they give up 0 instead of 3. Those slight point differentials are what win and lose football games for you. And even if we can hold them to field goals instead of touchdowns, I have faith that our offense can go down and score and retake the lead. Even if the defense gives up a couple points once in a while. But it's not going to be anywhere near as bad as it was last year, just because of all the talent we brought in, all the leadership and the veteran presences, as well as, rookie talent that we brought in on the defensive side of the ball. And then the last thing I want to talk about, I said I would mention it, is I think the special teams is going to be much better last year. Early in the season, the special teams really struggled. Sam Martin had a couple punts blocked. Matt Prater had a kick or two blocked. I remember the one against the Philadelphia Eagles that almost cost us that game. Jamal Agnew fumbling problems. And then Danny Amendola just isn't the same return man as Agnew. And we replaced Agnew with Amendola. He's just not the same return man, even though he does, control the ball better. I think it'll be much better next year. The Lions signed a new defensive coordinator from Cincinnati. They signed Braden Coombs, the the special teams coordinator from Cincinnati. And, a lot of people look at that and say the Cincinnati Bengals weren't a very good team. They had the number one special teams in the league last year. I think that the special teams as far as kicking is going to be much better. I think Coombs is a good special teams coordinator, obviously, because he coordinated the best special teams last year in the NFL. And then I think Jamal Agnew transitioning to wide receiver is going to help him with his hands, going to help him with drops and fumbles. And I think that he's going to be much better at that next year. I think that's the real reason that he actually moved over, was just to help him be more comfortable catching the football. Because as a corner, if you knock the football away, that's considered a good play. You don't necessarily have to get interceptions. You don't necessarily have to catch the ball on every play like a wide receiver does. So I think just, helping him with his hands, getting with the wide receivers, getting with guys like Kenny Galladay and Marvin Jones, who are really good at making catches. If you throw it up to them 9 times out of 10, if not 10 times out of 10, they're going to catch the ball. And that's when they're contested. Could you just imagine could you even see Kenny Galladay dropping a pass if he's wide open? Because I couldn't. Being surrounded by those guys and wide receiver coaches that are just going to preach catching the ball. He's probably going to be on the jugs machine every single day, catching passes from that thing, catching punts, catching, kickoffs, everything like that. He's going to get much more secure with the football. And then at that point, when Jamal Agnew has the football in his hands, you better watch out, because if you miss a tackle, he could be gone for 6. But, those are kind of the big reasons that I think the Lions can go from worst to first this upcoming season. I didn't really want to talk about, the Packers, the Vikings, or the Bears. I didn't really want to bash their teams, but, I think the Packers did get worse this year. I don't think the Bears are quite ready as far as their quarterback situation to, take the division back. The Vikings are the only team that really scares me, but I think that we are on pace to contend with the Vikings, if not beat them once or twice this season. I think it'll be a close race between us and the Vikings, but I definitely think that we have the talent. I think we have the opportunity, and I think we have just the right pieces falling into place for the Detroit Lions to go from the worst team in the NFC North to the best team in the NFC North, win the North, maybe get a bye, win a playoff game maybe, and from there, who really knows what's going to happen. But that's my opinion. If you guys see something on the Lions roster that you think might hold them back for becoming that first place, the best team in the North, let me know. Personally, I don't see any huge gaping holes on the roster, but, if I miss something, obviously everybody has a different opinion on each specific player. So, if you see that, if you see a hole on the roster that you think is going to hold the Lions back, let me know. Obviously, I like hearing from every single person that watches the videos. That, I just like having a community to talk to about football and everything. And obviously, people that watch these types of videos know their football, or else you wouldn't be watching, right? But, let me know if you disagree. That is all I have for today. If there is more Lions news today, I will obviously make a video letting every single person know. But until then, have an absolutely fantastic day. That is all I have for you guys right now. Thank you, everybody, oh so much for watching. See you guys later.